So, bad drawings. We all make them. My instructor used to say that you have 100 bad drawings in you. If you made one today, you got one of them out. In actuality, we probably have more than 100 bad drawings in us, and it really doesn't matter. Bad drawings aren't necessarily bad. Actually, bad drawings are a way to show you where you need to go or where you need to learn. Bad drawings are a way of finding out which lesson you still need to absorb. Bad drawings can be something that you might have found out that you didn't pay attention to or pay enough attention to, and that maybe you just don't fully understand some of the lessons that you are learning. But a bad drawing can be useful, and before you toss out that bad drawing, you need to think about what you need to examine it and think about what you can learn from it, what you can glean from it, because a bad drawing is not necessarily a bad experience. A bad drawing could be a good lesson for you, which you can take into your next experience, your next drawing session, and probably have more success if you can learn the lesson from the bad drawing. And a good drawing, we love them, right? We love having a good drawing. We can put them in a frame, or they're special. We can enter them in contests and so forth. But a good drawing, it's good because it's a culmination of everything that you've learned so far, and it shows that you've observed or absorbed the lessons that you've been going through, right? But it that's all it does. It makes us feel good to do a good drawing, and you can be proud of it for sure. But as far as a learning experience, it might not be as useful as a bad drawing. And that's not to say go out and do a bunch of terrible bad drawings. No, do the best that you can do. Try and apply your lessons. But if the bad drawing shows up, it shows that the lesson is not over and the lesson continues, right? And you're going to make bad drawings throughout your artistic experience. Doesn't matter where you are at. You could be on a master level. The thing is, on a master level, you usually the guys who can really draw, who you admire, can tell you very quickly, I don't like this drawing that they've done. They can say, oh, that's not a good one, and they're basing it on either it didn't go the way they wanted to, or maybe there's something wrong with how they approach the drawing, or maybe they're having a brand new experience and they're trying to solve it in a new way, and that way, the way that they've chose at that time didn't satisfy them or didn't get their point across or whatever. Could be a lot of reasons for a bad drawing. A good only shows you where you are. A bad drawing shows you where you need to go. Bad drawings, sometimes it could be that you are uncomfortable, or maybe you're too tired, or whatever. It could be things like that. But it's worth examining, and it's worth considering, regardless of what it is, so that you know that the next time you draw, that you won't repeat the bad performance, or you would have learned something, and you say it gives you direction to what you have to tackle. Bad drawings are just a reminder of some things that you've missed or just avoided learning. That can happen. Sometimes things don't turn out as good as we want them to, and you have to look at the foundation of the drawing. And in this case, the foundation was very, very poor. I had a terrible time doing this drawing. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but the foundation of this drawing was very, very shaky. It just was terrible, and it showed up. It seemed like all throughout the drawing, I was trying to rescue the drawing, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the drawings that you fight for turns out to be the ones that you really enjoy the most in terms of the experience. And sometimes you can fight and you can triumph, right? You can you can turn it into something good. But that would be because you've learned your lesson in that experience. So it's good to fight for the drawing, and then afterwards, when you're through, evaluate the drawing and consider what it is that you were up against. Because sometimes we're fighting for a drawing and we're making corrections here and there and whatever, and we don't realize what's wrong. And sometimes it's something that comes along that after the experience is over, don't throw that drawing in the trash right away. Consider looking at it. Consider, and you might turn out to throw it in the trash, whatever, but consider it and see what lessons that you can learn from that bad drawing. You'll be tempted to throw it out because a bad drawing is usually a bad experience, right? But you can turn it into something positive if you learn something from it. Over here, I did all this rendering over this drawing, but actually the foundation of the drawing was terrible. I did a terrible job in the beginning, and that really is what's wrong with this drawing. And all of this rendering or this playing around with the shadows and so forth couldn't rescue the drawing at all. And I had a terrible time with it. And you know, it's like what I was explaining before. It seemed like I was trying to figure out what's wrong with this drawing. What can I do to fix this drawing? What, you know, somehow if I change this, will that make a difference? No. If I change over here, will that make a difference? If I render this better, would that make a difference? And it really, really didn't make a difference. So because what was wrong with it was basically the foundation. And you see the finished drawing here. And I'm tempted to say, you know what, it's not that bad. There's some nice things to it. But there's some things underneath that don't look right to me. There's something, the structure underneath the drawing. So things are wrong with the way I constructed it, right? And so it's the kind of thing where you're left wondering, should I toss this out? Is it a good drawing? Is it a bad drawing? And then you have to analyze it and just decide for yourself. And I decided for myself, this is a bad drawing. So what I did was, the next day, I went ahead, I took the same reference and I went into I went into my sketchbook and started drawing again, and really concentrated on the structure underneath. And this was a drawing exercise, so I wasn't really worried about having a finished drawing. This is more practice and so forth. For the reference I got was once again from Earth's World, and I just use this reference as practice to go ahead and you know, make a better drawing. So I decided to do this drawing again, and I decided to use it as reference. And what I did was basically I started the foundation as best as I could. I made sure that I was going strong at the beginning and really analyzing the shapes and where it's at. So what was wrong there was basically the construction. I could build up a nice drawing, a nice rendering, and work out the lights and the darks on top of that. But really what was wrong was what was underneath it, and that was the structure, the foundation of the drawing. And if that's not right, you really can't do anything to rescue the drawing. Or if you do, it's going to be after much struggle. So rather than go through that struggle, I'm just going to go back to the foundation. I'm going to start it off with drawing the Loomis head and so forth, like I'm doing here, and just really concentrate on getting this part right. And one of the things I know with myself that I can glean from the mistakes I've made on this drawing is that I need to be patient, and I don't need to rush and jump ahead. Like, I need to really take the time to slow down and make things right before I move on. So, and just to not to make any excuses or anything like that, but the footage that I have before is really old footage. Not that old, but it's been a little while now since I did that drawing, And one of the things is that I've learned a lot since then. And so I needed to, well, actually, what I learned was to, you know, to take what I started with there, and I just got better at it just through practice. And so right there, kind of like was in the beginning of me incorporating a lot of different things that I was learning, and I've gotten a little bit further on it. So that usually when I'm doing these videos, what I'm doing is that I'm voicing over a video that I've made weeks ago. So this video was actually filmed a little while ago, and I'm just getting around to doing the voiceover now, because what I do to make sure that I have enough material to share on my YouTube channel is that I just film things as I draw. And as I'm filming things, I put it like, I kind of try to put things on a schedule. I need to get to this first, and this. So this is where I'm at right now, where I got to this drawing. So I'm trying to incorporate those things that I've learned. And one of the things is that if the foundation is not right, there's very little that you can do. It's one of the lessons from John Singer Sargent, the painter John Singer Sargent. He told someone who he was instructing. He didn't do a lot of teaching, but when he did, people took notes. And this one person took notes. And one of the things he mentioned is that if the foundation of the painting is not right, you might as well scrap it and start over again. And Sargent was famous for that. One of the things he did was that he would work on something and he'd have several starts, because he was unhappy with the start, and then he'd scrap it, and then he'd start again, and then he's unhappy with that start, he'd scrap it, and he'd do several times. And this is like, you got to imagine the sitters had to sit there and pose for this. It's not like you know, he could take a snapshot, because he didn't take a snapshot and work from a photograph. He worked from the live model. So they had to have a lot of patience to endure what Sargent, you know, what Sargent's quest for perfection was. He was really trying to get it right from the beginning, and he realized that if you didn't get it right from the beginning, that you're just playing catch up throughout the whole thing, and it's frustrating, and it just won't work, not to your satisfaction, at least not to a perfectionist like him, and it wouldn't work to his satisfaction. So you have to fix the foundation, and a lot of times that means you just got to start over again. There is something to be said for fighting for the drawing or the painting or whatever it is, but you have to fight for it inch by inch. Like, you got to make sure that before you move on, that thing that you're doing right now is right. Because if you move on beyond that without fixing it, it's going to still be there, and you're going to be fighting that whatever area it is. Like if the nose is not lined up, or the features are not lined up, the proportions are not right, you're going to be fighting that throughout the rest of the experience of making whatever image you're trying to make. So the first thing is just fix the foundation. So I'm trying to very, very, very carefully go through this, and not that I'm not going to make errors, but I'm going to fix my errors before I move on. And so I'm spending a lot of time doing that, and that's part of the experience of drawing, right? The experience of drawing is that you it just doesn't come out smoothly out of your head. Sometimes you got to fight for it, you know, and if it comes out smoothly, then that wasn't much of a challenge, would it be? Right? It wouldn't be much of a challenge. So you got to take the time to make it right from the beginning. And again, it's not that you're not going to make any errors in this, is that, you know, you're going to acknowledge your errors as you're drawing and fix those, you know. So, and that's what I'm trying to do. As I work through this, you know, I see how far I can go without rendering or doing any black and white work, because I did that at the beginning and I didn't have a problem with that. So for this drawing, which is really, there's several reasons why you draw, and I have a sketchbook because I'm just my sketchbook is to explore, and this is what I'm drawing in right now, my sketchbook. So my sketchbook is to explore the things that I need to explore to make me better when I do a finished drawing, right? Or when I do a finished piece. And it might be finished or it might not be. This drawing, the purpose of this drawing is basically to get the foundation right. So as I go on with this, I'm realizing that what I'm talking about, getting the foundation right, is not necessarily drawing all the features and so forth to fully realize the features, but the foundation is really the placement of the features, the things I want to go for in the foundation of the drawing is the placement of the features and the proportion of the features from one another. Like right now, as I'm doing the voiceover, and you know what, I'm always analyzing my drawings. I'm always thinking about what I could have done better. And this doing these voiceovers gives me an opportunity to evaluate my drawing, to evaluate what I'm doing, and to consider how I would do things differently. So I know not everybody records themselves, and I don't record myself for myself, but I record myself to share these videos, to teach and so forth. So, but in doing so, I'm also learning, right? So a lot of instructors talk about how when they instruct their students, one of the things that they're doing from teaching is they're also learning how they can improve their own work, because one of the things is that you want to practice what you teach, and also you might come across something that you don't consider or don't consider as much or need to consider more, right? And this goes back to if anyone has ever picked up the book The Art Spirit by Robert Henry, right? It's a book, it's still in publication years after it was first printed. Robert Henry was an artist who taught at the Art Students League in New York City, and he was a very, very popular artist. And what it is that his students took down notes from his class, and from those notes they put together that book called The Art Spirit, and it has been in print ever since. And it's a great book. It's made by Dover Publications, right? And they put it out, and I would highly recommend it. But one of the things he says is that he tells his students that one of the things he gets from teaching is that he learns as much from them as they do from him. And teaching is a benefit to him. So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at how I can improve my artwork. Now, the thing I'm observing is I went into like the nose and the lips are fine, but I think I started rendering way too early. I should have been more concerned about the placement of everything. The eyes, I think I approached that right with just considering the eye sockets and not trying to draw the eye, and knowing that the eye goes someplace within those sockets. So because what I'm trying to, this drawing, and really the foundation of your drawing is when it comes to portraits, is the skull. You know, when it comes to figures, it's the skeleton, right? That's where everything is built on. So when I'm drawing those eye sockets, knowing that the eye falls somewhere in there, right? So I'm preparing the placement for things. Like I should have been more concerned about the structure of the nose underneath than what I believe the nose actually looks like. I went too quickly into that. I need to analyze it first before I begin to draw it. And everybody's nose is different. Everybody's eyes are different. So all of it is about analyzing what you see. The Loomis method is a good start for something that's very generic, it's not everybody fits these proportions, so you have to tweak it as you draw. I'm using it more to organize my drawing than to use it as a kind of finalization where this guy looks like this or his proportions are this way, and that's not the case because it's a generalization, and which is fine. You have to have some place to start off with, and so the Loomis method is fine in that sense. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to speed this drawing up because a lot of this is about the placement of the features, which is what I'm trying to get. Even though I'm working on the beard and stuff like that. Beard is part of it because it's like everything that you're trying to get within the picture area on your sheet, on your drawing sheet or whatever, on the surface that you're working on. You have to organize on there, and I think because I worked on the drawing previously, I'm not putting in the neck and the shoulders and so forth, but I had that in mind. But no excuse, I should have put that in as I was drawing. But again, this is hindsight, and this is kind of like in the middle of my working. What I was. I kind of knew what I was shooting for. I had a direction as far as where I was going with this. But so at this point, it's the placement of the features and then checking the features compared to one another. Checking it within the envelope of the head, that the sphere of the head going down to the chin and so forth, or the structure of the head, and placing the features to work with one another in a kind of harmony, right? They gotta work in proportion to one another, and they have to harmonize. Like the nose has to belong to this face. The eyes, the lips, and so forth have to belong to this face. So you have to get the placement right, the size right, the access right, and those are the things that I'm thinking about when I'm doing this. For this drawing, the good thing about it is that even though I'm looking in hindsight, and there's still some things that I would change, what I've been doing throughout this drawing, and as you can see throughout the rest of this video, is that I constantly work on changing things. I've used the eraser. There's some people that would tell artists, don't use the eraser, right? I'm not one of those people. Okay, if you've made a mistake, the best thing and the humblest thing that you can do is to acknowledge your mistake and then take the time to learn from it and correct it. If you don't use your eraser, if you're just going on that spontaneity, you're drawing without thinking, you're just hoping that by instinct you can produce something that you like. There's no learning from that. And really, my question is that when an artist says, "Oh, well, I did this and I don't use the eraser and so forth. I just he does whatever." Well, the thing is that you only have that person's word to say that the mark they made is what they intended to. There's always ways of doing things better. There's always ways of learning, and you learn by doing. And you cannot learn if you do not acknowledge errors, right? So it's just a part of everything that you do. It's a part of everything that you can think of, whether it's some other arts, some other sciences or whatever. If you make a mistake, you're constantly revising mistakes in order to get the thing correct. How can you advance without it? So the eraser is a great tool. The eraser is a great tool, and I use it constantly for a number of things. One, to correct mistakes. When I'm shading, I use the eraser sometimes as a pencil to bring back in the whites or some lighter areas. Sometimes an area is too dark, and I use the eraser to lighten that area. Now, there's several erasers, right? There's the kneaded eraser, and there's also a harder plastic eraser, that I use. The one, it goes in an eraser pencil, so that I can refill, and another one is just a block of a plastic eraser from Stadler that I use. So these are your tools. They come in handy, just as your pencil is your tool, and you're picky about your pencil because it has to be a certain darkness, certain softness, or certain hardness, depending on what you're doing. Same thing with an eraser. Eraser is a tool, and you use it. You acknowledge mistakes. The mistakes are great. You can't learn from being supposedly perfect all the time, and nobody is perfect all the time. If you can't acknowledge that, then you can't grow beyond what you already know. There's a favorite story of mine that I like to tell because it's kind of telling, where I had posted things online a long time ago when I started using social media to show my work and so forth. I posted something online, and then I have a kind of spirit of self-criticalness, not to bash myself, but to learn and to acknowledge, like I said, acknowledge what you don't know, right? And also to evaluate my experience, so that when next time I can do it better. And that is what I'm in the pursuit of, is just being better at what it is that I do. And I know I have a long way to go. And another in just to actually, there's two stories to go with this. So I'll just say the first one. And the first one is this: when I was posting online, and I said on that post what it was that I found I needed to change. I was just critical, and so someone else responded, and they posted a link to their website. They said, well, why the need to change? Why can't you just be happy with what you do? And they posted their link and showed their artwork. And initially, upon viewing the first piece that they showed, I said, oh, well, this kind of looks nice. Then the second piece looked nice too, but it looked like the same as the first piece. Then the third piece looked the same as the second and the first piece. Then they all looked alike. So this person wasn't even growing, wasn't changing, wasn't challenging themselves, didn't even consider that they wanted to be better than what they are. That they were happy to be who they are and to make the kind of pictures that they, I guess, maybe that their friends like, or whatever. So, and the thing is that it was, to me, it's just pointless, because what's the point of doing something repeatedly that you're just doing again and again and again, and it gets boring? I remembered in art class, there was a particular artist that I liked, and it was an illustrator, and I mentioned, hey, I like this illustrator, and this guy said, oh, it's a science fiction illustrator, and this guy says, oh, you know what, he's great, but you've seen one of his paintings and you've seen them all. I disagreed, but I can see his point, that you kind of get stagnant with doing the same things over and over again. If you're just doing it for the sale, doing it knowing what's going to sell, and I guess that's important too, because you want to make a living off of your art, right? But then the other thing is that, what about you as a personal artist? How do you want to grow? How do you want to get better? How do you want to do things better? If you just see yourself as a brand, which is what a lot of people do, then they never grow beyond that brand, because everybody wants the same thing. But if you see yourself as an artist, and you're thinking that, look, I'm going to continue to change, and I'm going to continue to get better, then that's a different mindset, right? You can think of an artist like Hokusai, and I've mentioned him before on different videos, but I think that he's a terrific example of what it is that I'm talking about. Now, Hokusai was an artist in Japan, and he was he drew a lot of these sketchbooks. He was very famous for these prints, 100 views of Mount Fuji, and one of these prints that you always find in art history books is the print, the wave, right? And it's his stuff is very lively, very good, and I always enjoyed looking at it. But one of the things that I've learned from him is just the attitude of an artist. And I'm rather than just like before, I would try to quote from him, but I would try to just, I couldn't remember all the words. So this I just got this book, and I'm going to quote directly from the book, from his own words. And it's a book called The Hokusai Sketchbooks, Selections from the Manga, and it's by James Michener, who was a big fan of Hokusai. And this is Hokusai's own words. From the age of 6, I had a mania for drawing the forms of things. By the time I was 50, I had published an infinity of designs, but all I produced before the age of 70 is not worth taking into account. At 73, I learned a little bit about the real structure of nature, of animals, plants, trees, birds, fishes, and insects. In consequence, when I am 80, I shall have made still more progress. At 90, I shall penetrate the mystery of things. At 100, I shall certainly have reached the marvelous stage. And when I am 110, everything I do, be it a dot or a line, will be alive. I beg those who live as long as I to see if I do not keep my word. Now, these are his own words. And another quote, I rather than try to search through this book for it, I'm going to give you by memory, is on his deathbed. Hokusai's last words reportedly was, look, if I had only three more years, what a great artist I would have been. You know, and to me, that's the attitude of being a good artist, is really trying to grow and be your best and not settling for where you are at. I mean, and that's not to say that you don't enjoy what you do or you don't enjoy your growth, but you look at it and say, well, how do I add to this? How do I get better? How do I continue to grow and become a better and better artist? Part of it is doing the things that you already know better. Part of it is being open to growing and learning and new experiences and facing new challenges, because let me tell you, you will never get tired of drawing the human face. If you're into landscapes, you'll never get tired of landscapes, because there's always something new. And I'm talking about painting and drawing from life. I'm not talking about just doing the same things over and over again, working on the same types of designs, compositions, and so forth. I'm talking about when you encounter a human face, everyone is different. There's a variety of people and characters who are alive, who you can use as a resource in terms of making your works of art, right? And same thing with the doing landscapes, right? There's always new structures, new buildings, new trees and a variety of stuff to paint, that you will always find something new in it. And there's different times of day and lighting and so forth that go into anything that you do. So there's an endless variety. There's a lifetime of things to add to your learning, to add to your canvas, to experience as you work as an artist. So there's always going to be something new. It's just a matter of being open to it. And then also, like what I'm doing here with this drawing, making sure that I do the things correctly before I move on. So, which is, the focus of this drawing. Again, just lining things up, and I'm trying to keep this so I don't do too much of a what you know, speeding up the videos and so forth. I'm trying to keep it to I'm doing it real time so that you can observe what I'm doing and that you can see, how I go, how I develop the drawing. Because a lot of times when you do like these you see these speed videos or the where they do these sped up videos, tutorials, and I've done them too. And part of it is that you want to. It takes a long time to do this, so you want to condense this as much as possible, and edit till you get it to a certain space, right? So that the video won't be too long. But I kind of hold off. I wait. Like right now would be a good time because all I'm doing right now is if I'm working with a pencil that's this dark, there's a very soft pencil, then I'm already confident about the things that I put down, and I'm trying to emphasize some darks at this point. But I'm pretty confident with the drawing and what I've done so far. So if I've gotten this far, all I'm doing is just these are just accents or places of emphasis so that the drawing would look better, right? So but at this point it's fine, but I want to see I want everyone to see how I developed the drawing from the beginning so that you can get an idea of how this was done. When you do like these speed videos, it kind of gives the impression that it was done real easily, that there was no sweat, nobody thought of it, wasn't thought about it too much at all, there was not that much correction, and it's a false impression, and that you can do it quickly, which is another false impression. I find even if I do it in real time, I always say to myself, I need to take my time more, I need to slow down more, I need to consider what I'm drawing and what I'm putting down before I move on. So even in real time, for me, I'm going faster than I should be going. And I think that's where most of my mistakes in my drawings come in, is just having the patience to work things out from the beginning. So, I'm speeding it up now because at this point, like I said, it's just putting down some accents, even though I'll make corrections as I go on and so forth. It's always, your drawing is always open to correction. There's never a point where up until you put your pencil down, that's the only point where you're not worried, you're finished, you're not worried about corrections. But you gotta reach that point, and sometimes even after I put my pencil down and I look at the drawing after a few days, I will make corrections. I will see something that I didn't see before, and I'll make a correction, right? Then at some point there comes a time where you got to say, learn your lessons and move on and take it to the next drawing. And and to not be precious about it. I'm not precious about this drawing. This is not something that I would hang on a wall or anything like that. This was something more for the sake of learning, for the sake of getting the proportions right and so forth, and realizing where I went wrong in that first drawing. And so I want to just stop and work out that beginning part and be better at doing that. So at any rate, I sped this up just to get to this point right now, and this is the finished drawing, a much more satisfying drawing. I wouldn't say a perfect drawing, but better and easier to work on when I want to build it beyond this point. So again, to reiterate, what this whole video was about was, look, if you make a bad drawing, evaluate that bad drawing before you toss it out. A bad drawing could be good. A bad drawing could be, I know it's nobody wants to make a bad drawing, but you can turn it to a good experience by just evaluating what went wrong in that drawing and adding it to, you can do it over again like I did, just for the sake of you just being clear as to what you can do to make it better, or you can bring that into your next drawing and say, okay, this is what I learned from the last drawing, this is what I'm not going to do for this one. So I want to thank you for being this long on this video, for following me this far. If you've made it this far, please go ahead and hit like. If you like this video, that'll just help this channel out a whole bunch. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and share it with someone who you think might benefit from this video. So I appreciate you guys. I will be back here again on Tuesday with another video. Bye-bye.